Hi everyone, I'm Andrea Kennedy, an analyst with the Housing Division for the City of Mountain View, and I'm here with my colleague Patricia Black, and we would like to share some information with you about the temporary eviction moratorium in Mountain View.
Thank you for the introduction, Andrea. Hi, everyone. As Andrea mentioned, my name is Patricia Black, and I'm also an analyst with the Housing Division for the City of Mountain View. In late December 2019, several cases of a novel coronavirus known as COVID-19 emerged in China, and in January 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a public health emergency of international concern. As a result of the spread of the virus, on March 17th, the Mountain View City Council approved a local emergency declaration in response to the pandemic.
In these difficult times, there is a lot of uncertainty on how we are going to be affected by this crisis. To help stabilize the community, and in the interest of protecting public health and safety and preventing the spread of the virus, the City Council adopted a temporary eviction moratorium on March 27, 2020. The moratorium suspends evictions for non-payment of rent for residential tenants financially impacted by the health crisis. Please check the city website for updates at mountainview.gov/eviction relief. Today, we're going to be doing a Q&A style video to talk about the key components of this moratorium. So Patricia, can you tell me a little bit about the eviction moratorium?
The eviction moratorium suspends all residential evictions related to non-payment of rent if a tenant is financially impacted by the pandemic. The moratorium went into effect on March 27th, 2020, and lasts through May 31st, 2020. This date may be extended by the City Council. If impacted tenants are unable to pay rent, they cannot be evicted for this reason during the moratorium. Once the moratorium ends, tenants have 120 days to pay back the past due rent. All residential rental units in Mountain View are covered. This includes single-family homes, condos and townhomes, duplexes, apartments, mobile homes and mobile home spaces, and other types of residential rental units. And just to be clear, CSFRA rent-stabilized units are covered by this eviction moratorium. We do want to emphasize that this moratorium does not waive rent payments, and tenants should pay as much of their rent as possible, even if it's only a partial payment. This way, tenants are not left with a large amount of money to pay after the emergency is over. The moratorium simply means that while this public health crisis exists, a landlord cannot evict a tenant for not paying rent if their financial hardship is related to the pandemic. Okay, Andrea, I know that that's a lot of information all at once. Did that help clarify what the moratorium is about?
Yeah, that did help.
Oh, good. I do have a question for you. So how do tenants know if they qualify for the moratorium?
Right. So all residential tenants who experience a significant decrease in income related to the pandemic will qualify. Impacts can include such things as job loss or layoff, business, store, or restaurant closure, reduction in hours worked, substantial decrease in business hours or demand, the need to care for homebound children or a sick family member, federal, state, or local action that prevent a tenant from working, like the Shelter-in-Place Directive, or substantial out-of-pocket medical expenses due to the pandemic. And I do want to point out that self-employed tenants are covered as long as they can provide documentation that shows their financial hardship. All right, So if a tenant qualifies and they can't pay their rent, what should they do?
Tenants must notify their landlord in writing within 7 days after the rent is due. This can be by letter, text message, or even email. A fillable form is available on the city website to assist with notifying landlords, and it has all the information a tenant needs to help them notify their landlord. It can be found at mountainview.gov/eviction relief. There are also community-based programs to help tenants pay rent. The Mountain View City Council approved a rent relief fund for affected tenants, and tenants who are unable to pay the rent due to the pandemic can contact the Mountain View Community Services Agency by emailing renthelp@csacares.org and requesting assistance. For more information on this program, you can go to the mountainview.gov/COVID relief page. And also, Santa Clara County has set up a rent relief fund. Eligible households can add their names to an interest list and will be contacted when more funding is available. For more information about the county program, visit sacredheartcs.org/COVID-19. Tenants who qualify for the eviction moratorium should notify their landlord of financial hardship and provide documentation, even if they've applied for rental assistance. They have to notify their landlord to be covered and qualify for the eviction moratorium.
Yeah, that's a great point. So let's say a tenant was able to pay their rent in April, but then they lost their job. And they know that they will not have enough money to cover rent on May 1st. When should they notify their landlord?
That is such a difficult conversation, and we know people will be experiencing this. Again, we recommend that tenants notify their landlord as soon as they know that they are not able to pay the rent, even though under the ordinance, tenants have 7 days after the rent is due to notify their landlord in writing of the impact. We recommend that they notify their landlord immediately. This helps everyone prepare for what to expect in the future.
And does a tenant have to do anything other than notify the landlord in writing?
That's a great question. They absolutely do. Tenants must also provide documentation of their financial hardship to their landlord within 14 days after the rent is due. This can be a letter from their employer, pay stubs, or bank statements documenting their income before and after the impact, letters or notifications from schools, or any other documentation, such as COVID-19 related medical expenses. And Andrea, I have a follow-up question for you. Once the moratorium ends, what happens?
So after the moratorium ends, that past due rent must be paid back within 120 days. The moratorium currently ends on May 31st, 2020, but can be extended by Mountain View City Council. I also want to say that the landlord cannot charge late fees for any unpaid rent during the moratorium period. We also want to strongly encourage tenants and landlords to contact the Mountain View Mediation Program to help them effectively communicate and resolve any issues regarding the moratorium or rent repayment. And this program is free, fast, and confidential.
Mediation, I don't know much about mediation and this program. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Sure. Mediation helps people come together to talk and potentially solve any issues by a trained mediator. In this case, mediation could help tenants and landlords decide on a repayment plan for that past due rent. Using mediation will not impact the applicability of the temporary eviction moratorium.
As we've been talking today, I started thinking about other types of evictions. Are they still legal during this time?
That's a good question. The Mountain View eviction moratorium only applies to terminations for non-payment of rent due to the pandemic. If you receive a termination notice and are not clear if it's legal or not, please contact the Mountain View Rental Housing Helpline at csfra@housing.org. And I actually haven't heard if this law applies to commercial tenants. Would they be covered?
Small business commercial tenants are actually covered by the County of Santa Clara's eviction moratorium. The Mountain View moratorium is limited to residential tenants only, but a link to the county moratorium can be found at mountainview.gov/eviction relief. Oh, Andrea, that was a lot of information. And I'm hopeful that you can recap what we just covered or provide some key takeaways. Do you mind doing that for us?
Absolutely. That was a lot. So, the key points to remember about the temporary eviction moratorium are that it applies to all residential tenants who are experiencing financial hardship due to the pandemic. Tenants should pay their rent if they can, even if it's only partial rent. Qualifying tenants should do two things. First, notify their landlord immediately that they are unable to pay the rent, but at least within 7 days after rent is due, you have to notify your landlord in writing. Second, provide documentation of your financial hardship to your landlord as soon as possible, but at least 14 days after rent is due. After the moratorium ends, tenants have 120 days to pay past due rent. And the last thing, please contact us if you have any questions at all. You can visit our website at mountainview.gov/eviction relief, where you can also find forms for tenants to notify their landlords. Contact the Mountain View Rental Housing Helpline at 650-282-2514 or email us at csfra@housing.org with questions, or if you would like to set up a mediation with your landlord or tenant to negotiate a rent payment plan.
As Andrea said, please contact us if you have any questions or need any assistance. We may not be in our offices, but we are available to help you, and we're working hard to provide essential services remotely. We hope you are all able to stay safe and healthy during this challenging time, and we wish you well. Thank you for joining us.